Last week, as you all know, Meghan Markle flew all the way to Switzerland to give a speech on the perils of social media and how children in particular must be protected. I listened to the whole speech on double time, I'm not gonna lie. It was delivered well, at least. Speculation about AI generated content, don't know, can't prove that. The only problem was, well, the messenger, which might confuse some people and ask, well, what's wrong with the messenger? I sometimes forget that there is a very large cohort of people, and I used to be one of those people, who don't follow either the British royal family or the Keeping Up with the Sussexes show, and can therefore be left confused at best and enraged at worst when people criticize certain things that Meghan and Harry do, especially things that members of the British royal family are usually praised for doing. For example, the royal family goes on tours, they get praise and positive coverage. Harry and Meghan go on a quote-unquote royal tour, they get criticized. The royal family brings out their children or release photos of them every once in a while, they get praise. Harry and Meghan do it, you guessed it, they get criticized. Do you notice a pattern here? And no, I'm not talking about the pattern of the royal family getting praised and Meghan and Harry getting critiqued. I'm talking about a pattern of copying. To those of you who are confused about this so-called double standard, the thing to remember is that the royal family is an entirely separate entity to Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. It wasn't always that way. They were once unified, one and the same, until Meghan and Harry decided to Megxit and go on their separate ways. And let me be clear, by separate ways, I mean Harry and Meghan have actively been trying to replicate the very life that they had supposedly walked away from. Before we get into tackling this so-called double standard, here's a little fun fact for you. Meghan Markle is actually a lot more like the OG royals of old than the actual working royals of today. Hear me out. Historically, royal children weren't really included as part of public life, unless their parent prematurely died and they had to succeed them as monarch. Otherwise, they were sort of seen as an inconvenience to be dealt with by a brigade of staff, usually in some external aristocratic household. In more recent times, they've moved on from that practice to shipping them to boarding school instead. Now, while we don't live with Meghan and Harry, I think anyone with 2 brain cells can piece together the puzzle and understand that considering these two are never home, I mean, they're taking their cameras everywhere with them after all, I'm not guessing here. They obviously have very little to do with the actual day-to-day rearing of their children.
I don't have time to make dinner every night. I don't have time for that.
And this is where the commonality with royals comes into play. According to Tom Quinn, author of Gilded Youth, A History of Growing Up in the Royal Family, royal parents traditionally had very little to do with their children's daily lives, especially when they were very young. The reason for this was that daily child rearing was considered undignified for royals. As soon as a child was born, they were handed off to a wet nurse. Literally, the mother, the queen, or the princess, or the royal in question couldn't even breastfeed their own children. Some of them broke with that tradition, such as Marie Antoinette, who really wanted to be a hands-on mother, much like Princess Diana. But back then, it just wasn't the done deal. Those who were lucky enough to remain home within palace or castle walls were often so far away from the main royal household that they might as well have lived separately anyway. And this came with major repercussions. For example, in 1620, when King Frederick and Queen Elizabeth of Bohemia were forced to flee Prague, they almost left behind a baby. Carolyn Harris wrote in Raising Royalty, 1,000 Years of Royal Parenting, as the last carriages were preparing to leave the castle courtyard, a court chamberlain made a last inspection of the royal apartments. Following the sound of a baby's cries, he discovered Frederick and Elizabeth's 11-month-old son, Prince Rupert, who had been forgotten or abandoned by his nurse. While that may seem terrifying to you parents out there, here's a little funnier incident involving King George V, the late Queen Elizabeth's grandfather. So this wasn't even all that long ago. And this is more in line with how I'd imagine Meghan would behave in her own household, at least in my little fantasy. George V, as the story goes, once saw a maid pushing a pram along a corridor at Buckingham Palace. He then allegedly said to the maid, "Whose baby is that?" And the maid replied, "It's yours, sir." So Meghan is doing royal parenting right. It's just that she's a bit behind on the times. 500 years behind. But hey, no one's perfect. Needless to say, attitudes have recently changed and have been evolving throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. Nowadays, royal children are seen as a national treasure. However, it also comes with a few expectations. One such expectation is being seen every once in a while, sharing a little bit of that treasure with the public. Something which even Harry and Something which even Harry and Meghan dabbled in back in their glory days as working royals, and from memory, nobody criticized them for that back then. The point being, as with most things involving a 1,000-year-old institution, such as the British monarchy, things are rarely done without a specific purpose. In this instance, sharing children with the public every once in a while, there are two purposes in particular. Firstly, remember that the monarchy's primary goal is survival. Sharing a little bit of the royal children with the public every once in a while encourages the personal investment of said public in the monarchy's future. After all, the children are literally a symbol of the monarchy's future. Also, kids are cute. As long as they behave, everybody loves them. Even when they're not behaving, everybody loves them. So it's a done deal. The second purpose is more for the children's sake, which is to ease them into their future role as, presumably, working royals. This is particularly important for the future heir, being little Prince George in this instance, who will one day inherit the throne and must be slowly exposed to this very public role, just as his father William was before him, and just as William's father, the current King Charles, was before him. The last video was all about how certain royals such as Catherine have, the magic touch, being that they're people. She's a people person, they're really good with people. This doesn't always come naturally. Sure, some people do have a natural knack for it, but it can also come from repeated exposure and practice, much like anything else in life. Now, that's not to say that you have to agree with this, by the way, because I can see an argument for letting the kids be kids and just absolutely not sharing them with the public, at least until they're a certain age. There are downsides to this, though, which I'm sure the royal family has taken into account, which is when things are rare and mysterious and never seen, the press tends to be a lot more intrusive. And so when there is this pact, this agreement between the royal family and the press of letting them take photos of the children every once in a while, one would hope, and it seems to be the case so far, that the press would behave. Having said that, there has been criticism about this practice, with some comparing this relatively benign arrangement, if you ask me. I mean, we only see the kids 3 times a year max. But this practice has been compared by some to actual child influencers who are being actively exploited by their own parents for financial gain and clout. A bit dramatic if you ask me, but then again, Catherine Bennett of The Guardian has been known to have a flair for the dramatic, especially when it comes to defending Meghan and Harry and attacking the British royal family. I do wonder what she thinks of Meghan and Harry literally monetizing their own children on social media, but she's been conveniently silent on the matter. So I hope at this point we have a general idea, and I'm not trying to be condescending here. Genuinely, people in the comments tell me, why do people criticize Meghan for doing the very thing the royal family does? I'm just trying to explain. Because again, you have to remember, there are some people who are really not tuned into the story. But I hope at this point, we're kind of on the same page when it comes to why the royal children are shared with the public every once in a while, and why most people, other than Catherine Bennett and the like, don't complain every time it happens. We also know that Harry and Meghan left the royal family famously in 2020, presumably to live out a quiet and private life away from the harsh royal spotlight. I suppose they literally meant royal spotlight though, because Meghan is working harder than the devil himself by ensuring that her children are constantly in the public eye via her social media. And this is the same woman who was literally just last week actively campaigning against children being on social media in Geneva. That's why people get annoyed and start calling out her BS. The thing is, the royal family is not out there actively campaigning against children being in the public eye and then going ahead and doing just that. So when they do it, not only is it done for a reason or multiple reasons, but it's not hypocritical. But with Meghan, not only is she a liar with the whole Megxit thing, oh, we just want a private life, we don't want titles, yada, 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 but she does the very thing she publicly denounces. And all for what? This is something else people might not be aware of. It's all in the name of competition. This one-sided rivalry she has in her mind, where she wants to set up this rival American court, even though your ancestors in America waged a literal war to get rid of any such notion. You can see it in the way official photos are released to the press of her kids, holiday cards, public birthday posts. It's got all the hallmarks of the royal imitation game, as I've called it. Except, as usual, this endless game of copycat, rather than benefiting Meghan and succeeding in setting her up as a rival princess or queen, all it does is betrays her by once again revealing that she has a very shallow understanding of what it is to be royal and why things are done the way they are. She just focuses on the veneer and entirely misses the point. As I've mentioned, when it comes to the royal family, there's a method to the madness, a point to everything, especially when it comes to a matter that is as sensitive as children. But with Meghan and Harry, and this is why they get critiqued, this is a summation, the point is simply to compete and win at any cost, even if the cost is the privacy and the well-being of their little innocent children. It's not enough to just copy. One must understand why things are done, because then you can analyze, well, does it apply to me? Is this a necessary evil, basically? Or is it being done just for the sake of it? Just to satisfy the parents' own selfish whims and rivalries and ego. Thank you so much for choosing to watch this video. It helps support this channel. If you do want to support this channel further, there is a link to Patreon in the description box. You can find ad-free versions of all the videos here, plus some exclusive content in the past, which has never seen the YouTube light of day. If you can't support this channel on Patreon, that's fine. You know that I still you. Take care. I'll see you next time.